All right, everyone. Friday morning. This is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way. Just me and Ryan today. Tony's been given some time off for good behaviour or travelling. Is he back in Scotland, Ryan?
I was on the phone to him this morning. He got back at 10:30 last night, so it was a bit of a long journey because he got back from Manchester, so he still had the sort of 3-hour drive to do back up to Scotland. But he's home in one piece. He enjoyed his Dortmund trip, apart from that 90 minutes in the middle of it. But yeah, he's back, and he should be back for the Dingwall trip. Yeah, Tony and I are going to Dingwall, so looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing Celtic hopefully get back in action and back to 3 points, back to winning ways. That's the aim. That's got to be the focus.
Yeah, I'm. You were saying you were over the Dortmund game yesterday. I feel like I am at this stage. I'm very much looking forward. One more game, Ryan, then we're into another international break. So come Monday, we'll be wishing we had football to talk about. So let's make the most of the next few days. Morning, everyone. How you doing, Chilpill? What are you? What did Chris Sutton say? I've not actually seen. Have you seen this, Ryan? Chris Sutton's taking the Dortmund game.
I think he was calling Rodgers' tactics naive or something like that. It certainly wasn't positive, that's for sure. I think he was talking about the need for Celtic. I may be wrong, but I seem to remember. You read headlines, you read a lot of headlines when you're doing this, especially post-match in the game. But I think he was calling Rodgers' tactics naive, and they have to change against teams like Atalanta and Leipzig, or the same thing will happen again.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I think that's the common feeling. It'll be interesting to see what Brendan Rodgers does when we get to Atalanta. Before then, though, we do have Ross County on Sunday. What's the chat going into this one, Ryan? I think that Alistair Johnson hasn't been included in the Canada squad. I know Jesse Marsh spoke about it a little bit and said that he's been dealing with this back injury for a while. So I'm hoping it's just a case of there's nothing major to worry about, but it just makes more sense for Johnson to stay in Scotland than to go away to Canada or I think they're playing Panama. So hopefully that's the case, but we'll wait and find out from Brendan Rodgers later today whether Johnson's around for the weekend. I would guess that Ralston's probably the favourite to start at this stage, and Tony Ralston and Dingwall, everyone. We know how
I was going
that
to say
goes.
the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. He's got history at that ground, really great history, turning the tide. That was one of the games that really turned the tide of the title race. Ange Postecoglou's first season at Celtic, there was that never say die attitude that Celtic had, even though they were down to 10 men. Starfelt with that ridiculous sending off, despite him being on the floor bleeding. One of those wild refereeing decisions, but they kept on going. Abada with the early goal, and Tony Ralston, and the 160th minute of the game, rising like a salmon to score that goal, that header. What a moment that was! It's a moment that I actually didn't see live. I was at the cinema for some inexplicable reason. I was at the cinema instead of
What was the
watching
film?
that
What were
game.
you seeing?
It was the opening night of that Spider-Man movie. Honestly, it's the one that all three of them came back, and I'd booked it ahead of time, and yeah, I'd missed that. So if you've ever been to the view at the Glasgow Fort, you know that the connection there is terrible, and you only really get internet connection back when you're going down the escalators. So it was 1-0. I knew it was 1-0. I'd watched the first half. The second half, I open it and I just see, what was it, 3-2, 2-1, 2-1,
2-1.
but red cards, yellow cards, Tony Ralston scoring in the 98th minute or something like that. It was a crazy. I was like, it was one of those ones that, yes, the scoreline told one story, but then I watched the highlights. I was like, I'm actually quite glad I wasn't watching that because I'd be nervous the whole time. And I would have been, I think everybody was sort of resigned to the fact that Celtic were dropping points. But
What was
Tony
our
Ralston
front
didn't
three that night, Ryan?
Oof,
If I open this up to everyone else.
I think Juranovic was playing up.
Right winger.
Yeah, that's one I remember. Juranovic, Abada, was he playing up front?
Yep.
Was Montgomery?
Yeah, well done.
It's
That is the definition of bare bones. Juranovic right wing, Montgomery left wing, Abada striker. Dear oh dear. How did we win the league that season? What an effort.
Ange Ball, isn't it? It was Ange Ball, and it was just a sheer determination, and it clicked at the right time as well. You look at so many results in that season: Ross County away, Dundee United at home, again with 10 men on the park. Leo Abada with an incredible last minute goal, great assist from Jota. The celebrations as iconic as the goal, to be honest, from Jota, where he's actually in the crowd like some sort of biblical figure. It's incredible. But yeah, what a season that was. But you know, I've got no worries about Tony Ralston playing at Ross County. He might actually give you that necessary dig as well in what you need up at Dingwall.
Are you worried about potentially Ralston playing, Trusty and Scales playing, who haven't had a great amount of time together with their third game, and potentially Valle at left back? Because we'll wait and see what the situation is with Greg Taylor. Again, that's another player. We need to find out about a few players today. You know, Johnson, Taylor, Carter Vickers. Don't know if there's any other kind of injury worries. But the back
Craig
line...
going through the team in my head and see if any player get taken off the other night prematurely.
The back line will be interesting if Valle starts, because I would quite like Valle to start personally. Nothing against Greg Taylor. Obviously had a pretty torrid time of it on Tuesday, but so did every other player in a green and white top. So I'm not fussed about Greg Taylor generally, but I would put Valle in. I thought Valle looked decent in the second half, and kind of after that debut he had against Falkirk, where I'll be honest, I was a little bit concerned. I didn't think he looked great, but I did make the point, like everyone else says, it was just one game. I think since then Valle's looked quite good. St Johnstone, when he came on, he was good, and he's probably one of our better performers on Tuesday night. I know he came on when Dortmund maybe weren't playing at the same intensity, but basically what I'm saying is I'd like to see Valle from the start on Sunday, but I'm just wondering if Valle and Ralston plus Scales and Trusty, you remember how it went against Falkirk? And listen, away from home, Ross County are a good team. They're one of the better teams probably in the league at the moment. They're sitting 7th. They've lost a few late goals to, I think, Aberdeen and Hearts last week, so could be higher. We only have to look at them beating our rivals at the end of last season, how good they were that day, to show you what can happen if you're not at it.
Absolutely, and I agree with you with Baye. I think now is the perfect opportunity to see him, but you've also got that lingering doubt in your head that if you change both fullbacks for the game, then you're going to lose a lot of what they bring, both defensively and on the attacking side of things as well, because Greg Taylor will invert, and Baye was showing bits of that against Dortmund. There was little moments. I was like, there's a player there. We can see that there's something to work with. Good on the ball. I mean, that assist against St Johnstone in particular shows that La Masia quality that he's got. It's if there's a better assist than that all season, then I can't wait to see it, because it was an incredible moment. The only problem with that goal was that it was given offside. So yes, he did get 2 celebrations out of it, but it was almost as if, oh, they've scored this amazing goal, and then it was chopped off, and then it was back on again because they'd got it. So there was that slight delay. I guess that's one of the problems with VAR, that you're celebrating twice, but you're not celebrating authentically. But at the same time, it was
if VAR wasn't there, we would never have had that as a goal.
That's very true. Very true. So there are positives and negatives, but I'm glad that the goal was given quite rightly. It was onside. I loved that moment from Luke McCowan and Alex Valle. McCowan was absolutely raging that Valle hadn't shot, because he would have got the assist. I was like, you'll still get a key pass for that, Luke McCowan, don't you worry. But I like that camaraderie. I think there's also a question to be asked about him as well.
Yeah.
Luke McCowan to play, because he didn't get off the bench.
Chilpill's saying he wants to start him. But like, who would you... Because Engels starts and McGregor starts for me every week, so it's between McCowan, Hatate and Bernardo, isn't it? I'm not against that at all. I'd quite like to see McCowan start. If I was picking the team, he'd be in my team. I think Rodgers might go Hatate, but I'm not sure.
It would be ideal if you could just rest McGregor, but he's the captain, and I don't think at this stage of the season, if he still had internationals, I'd be all for McGregor being on the bench.
2 weeks rest after this game, so
he's got the recuperation period now. He can recuperate quite nicely. The international break, other players can go away, but he can really rest up. That'll be beneficial for Celtic in the long run. One of his poorest games in a long time on Tuesday, but like I'll caveat that by saying he wasn't the only one on the day that was dreadful. It was a real poor performance by basically everybody in the first team. But if he did have international games, I'd be all for McCowan, and McCowan can do a job against Ross County. I'm sure he's probably scored against Ross County in the league before for Dundee, so he's a good player to bring off. I think you already can see his squad role, what he's going to be like. He'll be one of those players that can be relied on in domestic games to maybe come in even as a starter or coming off the bench as a sub, but he'll never let you down. And yeah, it's just a good player to have when you need rotation. But for me, and it's a spoiler alert for my predicted 11 that will come out tomorrow at some point, I think it will be McGregor, Hatate, and Engels, to be honest. I think Hatate did enough in his cameo. Yes, there was some good parts and some bad parts in Dortmund, but I think he did just enough to get his starting place back for that game against Ross County. But at the same time, I don't want to fall into the trap of, one player has a bad game, so that should automatically be dropped. I think you've got to have some continuity, and I think that'll be the case for Engels and McGregor. But Bernardo come out of the team in place of Hatate. But they'll all swap as the season goes on. It's great to have options, and domestically, I don't have any worries about any of those midfielders.
It's quite a good pitch at Ross County, isn't it? Usually, but it's quite a tight pitch, and I don't know. Sometimes you just get a feeling for a player. And I just think Luke McCowan, he's got that really, almost quite like Callum McGregor, in that he's got that left-footed touch, really tight to his body, great first touch, and on a quite tight pitch, as you say, that he'll have played on previously. I just get a feeling Luke McCowan, not only Luke McCowan could come in and be all right for us, I feel like he could actually be a really important kind of match-winning type player if he plays on Sunday. So I'm definitely agreeing with Chilpil. I'm on the Luke McCowan vehicle of your choice for Sunday. I'm also wanting Adam Idah in from the start. I think he deserves a start. I don't know if I'd change the wingers. Potentially, you could look at James Forrest maybe coming in, but to be honest, I'd probably go with Daisamide and Nicholas Kuhn, give them a chance to get back to what they've done all season. But Idah, definitely for me. Are you Idah or Kyogo?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Adam Idah. I think his domestic form, especially, warrants him a start in this game against Ross County. Look at he'd scored in the last 2-3 games before the Dortmund game. He should have scored against Dortmund. That was inexplicable that he didn't score that chance. Although there was maybe talk that the defender or goalkeeper got a slight touch on it. I've only seen it once or twice, so I would need to watch back. I'm trying to not watch that Dortmund game as much as I possibly can, because it's just reopening wounds that are firmly getting closed at this point in time. But I think Adam Idah, it's a perfect game for him, Dingwall. I think it's a perfect sort of pitch for him. Tight pitch, physical imposing presence. I think regardless of who you start, whether it's Kyogo or Adam Idah, they'll get goals on Sunday. I've got full expectation and hope that they can get at least a couple of goals against Ross County. But for Adam Idah, I think it's good to give him a start before the international break, make him feel good about himself. Kyogo, you know what Kyogo's going to bring you, but I'd like to see a bit more of Adam Idah, get that ball into him and see what he can do. His goal scoring record at the moment for the past 2-3 weeks is very, very good. So I would like to see him continue that form going into the international break and beyond. He will be playing for Ireland, I presume. It'll be between him and Ferguson, so and other strikers as well. I think Ogbenny plays up front for them too. So
Ferguson's side note, apparently Ferguson's not scored in since November or something. Ridiculous.
That's very weird. At the same time, he's only 19, 20, so you're gonna have that barren run of games if you're a young striker, and that'll happen. But I don't think he's necessarily been first choice for Brighton either. I think they go with João Pedro and Danny Welbeck up front, and they seem to be doing a good job for the Premier League side as well. They're probably just waiting for Matt O'Reilly to come back so that he can
What was
play.
the situation with Matt O'Reilly? Is there any update on when he's going to be back? Because I've not seen anything.
They said he was back in training, individual training, so I don't know how long it's going to be, but hopefully he can get back. I wish him no harm whatsoever, and I really want him to kick on and do well for Brighton, because he was nothing but a great player for Celtic. I just want to see him kick on and get his mojo back, because it was only 8-9 minutes of his debut, and he got that crunching tackle from the Crawley Town midfielder, which. How is that not a red card? I think it's a red card all day long. But don't want it to become the Brighton podcast. But at the same time, I want to see him really. I really want to see him kick on and do well for his new club, because he was nothing but brilliant for Celtic for the vast majority of the time he was here.
Doing a wee bit of research earlier for my own channel, looking at the sort of European shockers that we've had and how we've reacted to them in our next domestic game. So I'll test you in these, Ryan. So Barcelona 7, Celtic 0 in the Invincible season. What was our domestic? And I'll open this up to everyone as well. What was our domestic game after 7-0 Barca?
Is that
to be honest, yes, very good. Incredibly
I know that because
difficult.
you told me yesterday. So
What was
I'm
the score
listening.
then?
I'm a good listener. I think it was 2 each. I think Rogic scored. Rogic and Sinclair.
I don't know. It was one of the games that we dropped points in that season. Right, so PSG at home 5-0.
Oof.
You're never
Uh,
going to get this.
uh,
So I'm as well just telling you.
is it like a League Cup game or something?
No, it was the league against Ross County. Funnily enough, but it was at Celtic
Wow.
Park. We won that 4-0 after the
Okay.
PSG game. I think James Forrest scored 2 that day. The 7-1 PSG game, we then went into the League Cup final, like Joe was saying yesterday, and beat Motherwell. And
Mm-hmm.
Atletico last year lost 6-0. What was our next game after that? How did we
Oof.
respond?
Let me think. What did we play after Ross County?
And
Ross
the clue
County,
is
Atletico
that
Madrid.
the clue is that we lost 6-0 to Atletico.
And then we won 6-0 against a team, didn't we? Was it
Yeah.
against like Livingston or that?
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen. So it was. Palma had a great
So
game. Yang had a great
somebody
game in that as well.
he did take the scored a couple as well. Take the three older ones away because like that's 7-8 years ago now at this stage. But last season under this Brendan Rodgers with the virtually the same squad we're looking at now, the team went down 6-0 to Atletico Madrid. Very similar game to Dortmund. Maybe Dortmund was worse because we had 11 men, but similar feelings. And they did respond really well a few days later to beat Aberdeen 6-0. I know it was a poor Aberdeen team. Um, but yeah, I think we'll be all right. Ross County are a decent side, though. I know who was it? I think it was Parkhead Boy was saying no danger at all. We'll scud Ross County. I don't mind the positivity, but I do honestly think Ross County, while we should obviously be beating them, are having a good season. We've got a few players. There's a guy who played here in Australia for Central Coast Mariners, Josh Nisbet.
Mm-hmm.
His name is midfielder. He'll be the smallest player in Scottish football. I think he's about, I don't know, 5'5", something like that. Like incredibly small.
5'3".
Is he 5'3"?
Yeah, I'm taller than him. There's a bit of a disclaimer. I'm taller than him.
Wow. Watch him. He's a really good player, and we can't afford to let him play. And I think Ronan Hale, who apparently is a Celtic fan, is having a really good season, scored a good goal at Tynecastle. And they play quite good football. Do you think they'll be as gung-ho against us as we were against Dortmund on Tuesday?
No, I don't. I don't think that'll be the case. I don't think they'll let themselves as open. They'll be as open as what we were against Dortmund, which was just a combination of a lot of things just going wrong. I don't know what style Celtic were trying to play against Dortmund at all. Were they trying to press? Were they trying to contain? It was some sort of weird amalgamation of the two, and it just
Yeah.
did not work whatsoever. Because they're the home side, Ross County, I expect them to come out and have a go. Yes, they'll keep it tight at the back, but I expect them to, especially for their fans will be wanting them to go up against Celtic. It's the early kick-off, they'll be wanting to be entertained. And for Celtic, it's all about getting those 3 points. Aberdeen play Hearts on the Sunday, and then Rangers play St Johnstone. So Celtic's 2 title rivals play after that. It's that scoreboard pressure that...
Title rivals? Only one title rival, nah?
At the moment, yes,
Yeah.
things can
Come
change.
on.
Although I would caveat Aberdeen's title chances by saying that their star player this season, Papi Habib Gay, has just been ruled out for about 4 months due to an injury. He's the player that they signed last season, but Barry Robson sent him out on loan to Scandinavia somewhere. I don't think he had any idea how to play him. Jimmy Talan knows how to get the best out of him, but I think he's missing for about something like 14 weeks. It was a really
Yeah,
exact number, so it's just under 4 months, 3 months. Yeah, he's been a really good player for Aberdeen this season, so he's definitely one to watch out for. And we play them very, very soon, in about 2-3 weeks' time, which is a massive game. And then we play them again in the League Cup semi-final too. So we'll know all about Aberdeen and we'll test their credentials or their title or trophy winning credentials very, very soon. But it's about Celtic play first, and they've got to put that pressure on Aberdeen and against Rangers. I do expect Rangers to stabilise at some point this season. I know they had a bad result last night against Leon, but it's Rangers. You expect them to stabilise at some point and mount some sort of challenge. What that'll mean, I'm not sure, or what that'll look like, I'm not sure. But at the same time, they're your rivals. They'll probably win. They'll probably get second place in the league. That's with an absolute disaster happening, although you wouldn't put it past anyone at the moment in this league. Don't really know where I'm going with this point, but Celtic just need to put the pressure on those two teams. They play first, get the 3 points on the board, and let's see how those two respond to that.
Sorry, you mean to say that Rangers, after their fans mocked us for a Champions League result for about 72 hours, then lost 4-1 at home in the lower competition last night?
Yeah, I did. I did watch that game last night as well, or I watched bits of it. I watched the goals as they went in. A couple of really familiar faces in that Lyon side. Alexandre Lacazette, especially with that second goal that he scored, was an absolute screamer. He's a bit of a veteran now. He's not got the pace that he once had in his first spell at Lyon, and then to start with at Arsenal. But yeah, he had a good game, as did that Ryan Cherki on the right wing. He looked absolutely sublime in Fofana as well. So yeah, it was apart from Hearts' result, it was a poor week for the coefficient and for Scotland. As Rangers get beat, Celtic get beat, and Hearts get that last minute goal. A very, very weird tie in Azerbaijan against Belarusian club Dynamo Minsk. Very political. There was political undertones with that as well, just due to the whole Russia situation. But it was good for Hearts to get a win. The coefficient, at least one Scottish team was winning this week.
Yeah, we'll pick it up in a few weeks. Brendan Rodgers today, it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say after he's had a little bit of time to think about Tuesday night. I don't think it'll be particularly different from what he said, because he's not the kind of manager who comes out and has a rush of blood to the head or whatever and says things and then regrets them. Even when he was clearly pretty angry after the Hearts away game last season, he was very measured in what he said about John Beaton. So he's obviously very experienced, but it's going to be interesting to kind of see what if he's had a think about things over the past couple of days. I'm guessing he's going to be asked a few times about the approach, and did he get the approach wrong, and I expect him again to say similar things to the other night. But I think it's going to be interesting going forward to that Atalanta game. We're going to have to see some sort of change in the way we do things. But as I say, that's probably a discussion for nearer the time. But it's going to be interesting to hear from the manager today. We'll get an injury update. I don't think Carter Vickers, there's any chance of him being back. Just with the international break coming up, you wouldn't see any point in bringing him back for this one.
Give him the 2 weeks, let him recuperate and bring him back for the games to come. I think that's the best way to go about things. Is it Aberdeen straight away when we come back?
I think so. First game, yeah. And then Atalanta, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a tough schedule. 2 really difficult games on paper. I expect Celtic to beat Aberdeen at home, but bring Carter Vickers for that. Give him the 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. If Aberdeen go in, how many games they won in a row? Like 11 or something like that. Imagine they beat Hearts on Sunday, which you'd expect them to. It'll be. Do you remember the game? Season, was it 05-06 when Hearts came to Celtic Park, and I think they'd won every game bar one. I think they'd drawn with Falkirk, and they came to Celtic Park, and it's the reason I say that is it's the only game I ever remember at Celtic Park where the attendance was more than 60,000. And Hearts brought a massive support. I think Aberdeen next weekend, they're probably only going to get not next weekend, but they're probably only going to get about 1,000 tickets, but they'll go in no time, and that'll be a huge game. I know the Atalanta game's probably bigger with the Champions League stuff, but Aberdeen coming, if they come with a 100% record to Celtic Park, and we've got a 100% record domestically, that's going to be an unbelievable game.
It's going to be an unbelievable game, unbelievable atmosphere. I don't want to go as far to say it'll be a derby, but I think a derby, in order to constitute a derby, I think the two teams need to be from the same city. I think that's the sort of rule between the two. We'll have a big game feel, which is good, and I think it's needed. There needs to be that third power in Scottish football, and I think that interchanges season on season. Sometimes you get Hearts, sometimes you get Hibs, sometimes you get Aberdeen, maybe sometimes Dundee United as well. But there needs to be that third force that you're looking out for that fixture. Either you're going to their away ground at Tannadice or Pittodrie, or they're coming to Celtic Park, and it's a real sort of festival atmosphere. You're looking forward to that game between the sides. I'm hoping that Aberdeen keep this up because I think it's good for the league. It's good to have that power in Aberdeen. I think the league is better when Aberdeen are functioning well, and they've clearly went for a left field choice in Jimmy Tallan, but it's definitely working, and I think it's a blueprint for other teams. Look at St Johnstone, whose new manager, the name escapes me, but that's a left field appointment as well. It seems as if, and I don't want to say jobs for the boys because I think that's a harsh term, but they're going for unfamiliar faces or sort of unfamiliar managerial faces into the game, and I think that can only be good in terms of growing the product and growing the league by bringing in foreign managers. It's the same with foreign players. If you've got better players that come from elsewhere, you might as well bring them in because the product's going to be better. I know that's to the detriment of Scottish talent and Scottish managers, but if the product is better, then you might as well bring them in, as long as it's got to translate to what's good on the park. And for Aberdeen, it's certainly working at the moment. I'm looking forward to that game. Already sort of circling it in the calendar. Has that been an exciting game between that and the League Cup semi-final? I think that's going to be a tremendous occasion because the semi-final in the Scottish Cup was brilliant a few months ago, and Aberdeen weren't even good at that point, but they put up a good account of themselves. So what's it going to be like when they're actually a decent team coming up against Celtic?
Yeah, Simo Valakari is the St Johnstone manager's name. Was at Riga most recently, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. We don't obviously play them for a while. I was just looking at the fixture we've got coming up after the international break. I think there's 8 games there in like 4 weeks, so it's going to be pretty intense, and there are a lot of really tasty games. Aberdeen at home in the league, Atalanta in the Champions League. We then have a kind of 3 league games in 7 days. Motherwell away, Dundee at home, Dundee United at home. We then go into the League Cup semi against Aberdeen at Hampden, which is going to be, as you say, it's going to be a great occasion as well. It's a 5:30 kickoff, isn't it? Brilliant. And then Leipzig at Celtic Park, going to be amazing. And then Kilmarnock away, which is going to be really tasty. And then the game we come back to after the next break, because there's one more international break after that, is Hearts away. And then you're into like Club Brugge. You've got a midweek trip to Pataudry after that. I know I'm jumping way ahead, but there's some really, really kind of good, exciting games coming up. So yeah, looking forward to it. Any more thoughts on Sunday, and then we can probably round this off.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to watching this team in person again. Tuesday was the first game of the season I wasn't able to catch live in person, so it was the first time I was watching Engels through the TV. I'm not putting it down to me, the fact that we lost, but I wasn't there, so maybe that's the reason. Maybe I'm just a good luck charm. Hopefully I can bring that good luck back at Dingwall on Sunday. But I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be a hell of a trip up there and back, but wouldn't do it for anything else. It's a Celtic game. You can never moan too much about going to watch Celtic at the weekend, regardless of where they're playing. Great part of the world to be in, even though it takes a while to get there. Looking forward to hopefully Celtic getting back to 3 points and really just underlining the great start that Celtic have had to the season, because apart from the Dortmund result, they've been virtually perfect. In the league, they've been perfect. They've not even conceded a goal in the league yet. They've got through to the semi-final of the League Cup. They won that first game against Slovan Bratislava. I'm willing to put the Dortmund game down to a massive blip in between, because if you look at everything else on that record, it's all wins and it's all well and good. They're scoring goals from every position, whether that's defence, midfield, attack, playing good football. I just want to see them get back on track. It's a blip just now. I don't want it to become a skid, as I called it yesterday. Get back on track, get the 3 points, and get down the road.
Fingers crossed. I always enjoy that trip up to Ross County. It's just so far away in Scottish terms. Once you're up there, you really want to make the most of it. And pretty good record up there. I can only really remember us losing a couple of times. Once during the COVID season, once I think under Neil Lennon, we were maybe 2-0 up and lost 2.
There was a game that was away from home and it was a 3 o'clock kickoff, and I remember that because I couldn't find anywhere to watch it, so I was kind of watching it. I think it was on a BlackBerry phone, actually. That's how long ago it was. I think
Charlie
it was
Mulgrew scored a
corner.
Yeah.
I think Effie Ambrose scored as well, or Dylan McGeoch played as well. I remember that kit in particular. It was the one with the lots of hoops, the lots of green and white
Yeah.
hoops, and the small Tennant sponsor. But that was a really poor result on the day. I do remember that. But recent trips to Ross County have been good. Obviously, get the Jota games, one where Jota essentially won the league. Get the goal, the game that Jota and Kyogo both scored twice. That really was one of the games to kickstart Ange Postecoglou, and I think that was one of the games that everybody really took notice of how well that they were playing and they were managing, because away wins weren't happening the season prior. There was a point where they weren't winning away from home for months. I think it was a record like since Valentine's Day, and it was about 4 or 5, 6 months between that and the Aberdeen one. So we took those away wins for granted, and then all of a sudden they didn't come for the 5, 6 months. But the last time we were there, Luis Palma scored an absolute screamer. It wasn't really a contest because Ross County were down to 10 men very early on in the game. But I'm hoping for the same on Sunday. Really, a bit of a non-event.
Yeah.
Celtic scoring a couple of goals, no injuries, and get into that international break. At least 5 points clear of Rangers, and hopefully 3 points clear of Aberdeen too.
Yep. What's the plan for videos before kickoff?
I'm not sure if there's going to be a press conference video. Obviously, Tony's off today, so it'd be a bit of a monologue, me talking about the press conference. But the press conferences will be available on the Celtic Way website if you want to check us out there and subscribe. They'll be available to look at once they're written up, and whoever talks to the media, it'll be Brendan Rodgers and a player. So look forward to that. Sunday, both Tony and I are going to the game, so we'll have pre and post match from that game. So yeah, join us for that. Nice and early. We'll be up at Dingwall. We'll be up nice and early, up at Dingwall nice and early, and yeah, look forward to those both pre and post match videos.
Great stuff, right? I'm going to say goodbye for now. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Hopefully things go to plan on Sunday, and I'll catch back up with you on Monday.